Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's July the 9th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And a quick look at our daily chart. You can see here we traded higher and we closed higher, but it was mostly a sideways, very low volume sideways day. Nobody seems to be selling really up here, but there's not a lot of buying coming up here, at this overbought area here. And you can see we are still turning down off that upper trend channel line. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get a correction here of some kind uh, before this week is up, but doesn't mean we can't just keep chopping higher with little tiny bars like that either. So we'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. But right now the trend is up. It doesn't really look that way when you go look at today's chart. It just looks like a sideways day. Um, but let's just go ahead and flip over there and we'll go through the trades. It was a for a change, it was kind of a tight range with consistent lows. The highs were not so consistent, but the lows were. So there were some trades today for a tight range like that. But let's flip over there and take a look at it. Okay, here's a look at our 2,000 tick chart. You can see tight range of, looks like it's 10 or 12 points here. 10, basically 10 points. Not much of a range. And notice that where we opened here at 8:30 and we had the gap down here from the previous day, and prices did work down and fill that gap. I mean, they tried and tried to go lower. There was strong support here, and eventually they pushed lower just before 2:30, and then we didn't rally out of there very high. But of course, we're closing higher today. Not much, but we did close higher, and we traded a good bit higher. But well, I say a good bit, 12, 15 points higher, but we didn't close much higher. So just a range day. It looks a little different on the daily chart than it really does here. You can see it's really just a tight range here on the 2,000 tick chart. But let's zoom in. We'll go through the trades and we'll wrap this day up. Seven o'clock came as we're trading down over here. Um, I don't really see anything I like to the downside here. And of course we bounce, and this was tempting. It is a second entry, but I just think that's too congested. We'd already had a break and a new high, and really you kind of got somewhat of a downtrend working down here. I didn't draw it on there, but it's there. And so I just wasn't comfortable with that. Honestly, it's really, rather than a downtrend, it's really more sideways. So I think you just have to kind of skip that one. We do get two legs up, and you got a high here, but this makes a new high, so I'd wait on a lower high. And by the time you get a lower high, you're right back to your possible trend line again. Notice you do get a second entry here, but I wouldn't take that. But when you get that higher low right at the trend line, we're probably going to retest this high, and so I like entering there. It took it a few minutes, but it takes on off eventually, and then you get a triple test here. Um, by that time, it looked a little congested. So if you didn't enter over here, I don't know that I would re-enter here, but you could re-enter there if you wanted to. Again, and you could enter there period if you wanted to as a just as a higher low. It's a failure too, so it's a failed second entry short. But I'm not crazy about it. I marked it green, but I'm not crazy about it. Your odds are you're going to retest that high most likely. And you can see it does. It runs up, retests that high, and we kind of create a new high up here. We do get a triple test here, but it's signal bar doesn't qualify. It just looks sideways. We turn down, we bounce here, two legs up. So we do get a lower high here with the second entry short, and it breaks higher and turns down. You could trade that on the engulfing bar, or you could wait till that closes. I will note this. I still like this trade, but that little gap right there, notice how there's no overlap between them bars. Sometimes prices will pull back and fill that gap and then turn back up. So that's something that you might want to watch for. But clearly we had a leg up or a trend up with a break and new high. And we also have a triple test up here. So I like this trade all the same, but that's something to consider and be concerned about. And you see it does take it a little bit to work on down, but it does work lower. We run down to the lower side, and that's just a new low there, and we're still in that trend. So you can't go long yet. You do get a second entry short right there, but the signal bar is no good. And then it bounces, and then you get a third touch right there with a fairly decent signal bar. It's not a perfect signal bar, but when you get that third touch there and it can't make a new low or even a lower low, that's a pretty good sign that we're probably going to bounce. So I like that one. Again, it's a little aggressive just simply because of the signal bar. If it had a better signal bar, I'd tell you to take it. It does look a little bit congested there, but this one kind of took off. So if it closes on its high, it really looks like you're getting rejection there. So that's a possibility. It's not a perfect setup. It's a little aggressive, so I did mark it green. This thing runs on up, and it just takes on up all the way to the top, and you finally get a first entry and then a second entry right here, but that doesn't qualify. It does look like two legs up as well. I'll be honest with you, that one's tempting, and I'm guessing somebody probably went short there and probably had a loser. But it is a first entry by the counts. There's a hidden second entry, and there's definitely two legs up there, and it definitely is at least a triple test, but it makes a little higher high as well, and that's why you probably want to wait on a lower high on these. And you see you don't get that till here, and the signal bar is no good. But then you finally get a little two-legged move back here. Notice the new low moves up, down, back up, and then turns down again. So that's a second entry. That's a hidden second entry short. You could also call that a failure. It's a very nice signal bar. It does confirm that trend line. I like going short there. I marked it green just because it looks a little sideways, and it's a little more advanced with it being a hidden second entry or being a failure. Either one, those are a little more advanced. So I did mark it green. But if you're an experienced trader, I like that trade. I'd probably take it. We do get a lower high here, but you got some support across there. You can see it, and it failed right there. And you see it takes it. It fails a couple more times. It ends up going on down, but I think that's too dangerous. So then it comes back and gets another first entry, second entry, but that's too much stem. And then when this one doesn't even tick past it and you got those 3-bar matching lows, I just sit tight on that. I think it's too risky. And of course we do run to a new low, and then we get that little failed break lower. I like going long right there. We've bounced there multiple times now. Then we just kind of get stuck sideways before it shoots off up to a new high here, and I don't see anything in there all the way up that I like. It's tempting. Once again, you get another bar right there. It's very similar to that one. It looks like it's going to be a repeat pattern, but it doesn't, and it ends up working low. There's still no entries really in there. There's a lower high right there, but not a perfect setup. And then you get a failure right here again. And again, because it's a failure, I marked it green. Would have been an easy scalp, and then we bounce. Get a new trend working up. I believe we get an overshoot there, and then a close outside it. So it doesn't quite make a new high, but I don't see any entries here. That is a second entry short, but I don't think you can take that. I think that's actually technically that's not a second entry short because it ticks lower right there first. But even if it was a second entry, I don't think you can take that trade. Even if it looks like a little bit of an overshoot, I think you have to wait and make sure you're not going higher and get a good lower high entry, and you don't get one. It just, the bottom falls out there. And you get this trend working down. Notice you got another hidden second entry right there. But again, it doesn't break lower, and then you get an inside bar. You can't trade that. It does drop on down to a new low and instantly rejects off there. I like going long, just playing range rules. Then you get a high or low, same thing off high or low off range rules. That's two easy trades. And of course, this is two legs up, so there's a second entry short right here. Since this has matching highs, you could use either one of those as a signal bar, but by the time this one closes, it looks congested. So I would wait and see if you get a lower high, and you actually do get a double top with a nice signal bar there. That's the better place to go short, and you can see then it drops straight on down. It looks like we're going to bounce off there again, and then you get an inside bar. This one makes a high or low, so even though it does look like rejection by that time, you can't enter, and it's probably a good thing because it would have failed on you. And next thing you know, you're getting a second entry short. You do have to notice this trend working down as well. You had the trend up, and it makes a double top. Now you got a trend down, and you did have a close outside new high. Then you got your trend down. That's your first close outside. So on that second entry short, I think you can go short there again. Now we did just bounce off the lows, but there's a good chance we're going to test them again to see if we can make a new low here. And we could be trying to fill this gap down here. So it could run on down even further. And it does, but it still fails and comes back. Now this does make a new low here. That's a nice signal bar. You're still a little ways from the EMA. It does close back inside the range. You know, you could argue for that to be green, but I'll be honest with you, I'd skip that and see if you get a high or low, which you could say, okay, I get a high or low here, but you've already got a break in the new high by the time that comes. And it does run back down here again. Signal bar is no good there. It's starting to get tempting here, but we're not really getting rejection. We're just kind of working sideways. And so I just sit tight, and then notice what happens. It does drop down. Fills that gap, gives you a nice bullish bar. I don't know if you can get in this one or not because it does gap over. It does tick back momentarily, so if you were really quick, you might get in that with a limit order. There's a high or low here, which would have been probably the better entry, but by that time, it's 235 or something like that. It's a little too late, so no other trades after that. And I did mark that one green because you're always better off to wait on that higher low just to be sure that prices are actually turning. You want a little more, and that's all a higher low or a lower high does, is it just gives you a little more evidence that we're starting to trend higher again, because now you got a lower low here, and then all of a sudden you have a higher low, and it should lead to a higher high and another higher low, meaning that you're then going the other direction. So that's the whole idea behind that higher low. Just a little more evidence that we're trending in the right direction. So there it is. Not the greatest day, but there were some days. It was a little easier range to trade than normal. And there's a couple of trends in there with second entries and things like that. So a little bit better considering the lower volume that we're seeing lately and the fact that this was a 10-point tight range. We hadn't seen a range like that in a while. I mean, for the longest there, we had the craziest volatility I've ever seen since I've been trading. But this is more normal type ES. I can remember when you had a 20 or 30 point move in a day. It was a huge day. 10 or 12 points was about the average move per day, and that was for a long time there. So the volatility that we had has been unprecedented since COVID, but it looks like we're kind of swinging back to a more normal market now, or at least more normal in the fact that not as much volatility. But anyway, there it is. Again, there's not much else you can say about this day. It's just a standard range day. It really closes on its lows here almost. But it does close higher because here's your close from the previous day. And somebody did point out, I think when we switched over to the new charts, for some reason my template didn't load and my close was coming up at 3:15 or something. This should be 4 o'clock. That's when the market closes. So I did correct that. So my closes looked a little off for a day or two there. They probably were. So because I was my template obviously didn't upload my default template. I was trading off of whatever's in just actually in there already. So anyway, I did correct that. If you notice that, it's corrected. So only one person mentioned it. Usually, if something like that's off, multiple people will mention it, but only one person mentioned it. So I think it was only a couple of days worth, because we switched over and then we had the 4th of July holiday and then we were gone. So people probably just didn't catch on to it yet. I certainly didn't. But anyway, I have corrected. So this close should be at the right place now at 4 o'clock. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Yeah, nothing else I can say about today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.